Paranormal Karen, she's so spooky. Paranormal Karen, funny too. Paranormal Karen, she's so spooky. Oh, and did I mention she's funny too? Yeah, cha-cha-cha.
Hey everybody, welcome to a bonus episode of Paranormal Karen. This episode was supposed to come out on March 8th, but I'm moving it up because I wanted to piggyback right on top of the MK Ultra episode. Now, I loved the MK Ultra episode and I become good friends with the woman in it, and I just think she's fantastic. But she did drop a statement about transhumanism that didn't set right with me, and I tried to adjust it in the podcast, but I don't know if I did a good job. It kind of happened fast. I don't know how else to, I don't want to put an excuse out, but I was caught on a left turn. So before the episode came out, I sent it to my friend Z and asked them to address it. And I haven't gotten any complaints, but that just makes my heart feel better to do it this way. And of course, my brilliant friend Z so articulately addressed it. I just want you guys to hear that. That's the first part of the episode. It'll make my heart feel better to have you all listen to that. And then they go into SSP, which is something I'm doing right now and very excited about. So, like I said, I wanted these two episodes back to back. So enjoy. And I hope it addresses anything that didn't sit right with you. If you were kind of like, woo, what happened there? All right, enjoy. Hey everybody, welcome to Paranormal Karen. So much happening today. I am doing this podcast. Join the Patreon, join my email list. You guys know all that crap. What that's called? Housekeeping. So, today I'm very excited. Jessa sent me, something about SSP, which is shall I say it's a nervous system reset? Does that sound good?
Yeah, that sounds great.
Okay, that's one of the things we're going to talk about. But first, I want to, we're going to bring up another topic. Now, Z, first of all, nice to have you. Thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
I have to say, if there was anyone made for this business of resetting nervous systems, it's you, because your smile is so warm and so engaging. Like, it makes me feel better just when I see it.
Oh my word. That's incredible. Thank you so much.
I could not get over your smile. And now I reached out to you on a different topic, which was about a podcast where something was said about transhumanism. And I asked you to listen to it and asked if you would address it for me. And so it just came out 2 days ago, and I haven't heard any complaints or anything, but I still think you're a good one to talk about this. And so I'm going to say, can you tell me what you think? Tell me your side, whatever you want to do here.
Yeah, for sure. First of all, I just really want to honor you for reaching out about it, because it's really important that when we have topics that can be used to harm or control groups of people, that we invite those folks who have that lived experience to share about it. So I really appreciate and respect you for reaching out about that. I am a trans person, but I am not all trans people. So I can speak from my perspective and just from my personal research that I've done as a trans person. But obviously, we're all unique. I was very surprised to hear the word transhumanism. I hadn't come across that before. And from what I've seen, just from doing a cursory look into it, transhumanism seems to be an umbrella term for anything that describes like efforts to extend human life, to use science and technology to do so, to take away limitations such as death, disease, and existential threats, things like that. And it goes back like all the way to Epic of Gilgamesh type, looking for the elixir of life.
Okay, and I'm going to tell you, first of all, you're already doing exactly what I would hope, because I'll put this out there. When I was doing that podcast and I had gotten to know her and I loved it, and then that hit me. And when you're doing a podcast, first of all, I don't like to edit my podcast at all, because I kind of like want people to see the whole picture, not just what I wanted them to see. So, and I heard it and I slipped by me, and then I brought it back in the podcast, but I sent it to you before it came out, and I didn't even hear transhumanism because I think my alarm bells went off. So when you say that, you just gave an explanation. You say it again. It was about going back. It was about making life longer, extending life.
Right. Extending life through science and technology. And so the religious right, or perhaps some other groups, I don't know what term to use, have pushed back against some of these technological advancements because they're experienced as like an attempt to play God or interfere with nature. Okay. I remember this growing up. I grew up evangelical Christian, and there was a lot of hoopla about when the sheep were cloned. What are we becoming God if that happens? It's a slippery slope. We're going to go too far. We're morally corrupt, yada, yada. And at its extreme, transhumanism is compared to the eugenic movement of Nazi Germany. Okay. So the response to transhumanism seems to be from this perspective of we're playing God and that's dangerous. Okay. Now, putting transgender people in, like, lumping the transgender experience into the transhumanist agenda is something that, from what I can tell, is only done by folks who are doing or coming from that religious right type of experience.
Okay.
Of seeing trans people as related somehow to this genetic manipulation that should only be God's role. Okay.
Okay.
So what's helpful to know with that is that there are only a very, very teeny tiny percentage of trans-identified people who actually ever have any relationship with medical or surgical intervention.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yes. So trans people have, there was also a piece of the conversation where you all were talking about, well, maybe the world is not ready for trans people. Maybe someday we're all going to not have gender, but like, we're not there yet, is sort of what I heard from you all as you were chatting. And so the helpful information around that idea is that trans people have always been in all recorded history, and we're actually empowered to be spiritual leaders in almost every indigenous tradition that we have records of. So I've learned most of this from someone named Alok V. Menon. If anyone's interested, please look at their Instagram. It's at Alok V. Menon, and they are amazing. They're like Harvard trained and just incredible. But some examples are in the Yoruba culture in Africa. There was actually no gendered language. Gendered language was introduced during colonialization and the missionary effort when they translated the Bible. They imposed gender onto the Yoruba gods, which were originally referred to with plural pronouns, like I use they, them pronouns. The gods used they, them pronouns in Yoruban culture because there was no gender imposed in their language or their culture. All people were together as people and sort of interacted with sexuality and reproduction apart from any ideas of gender. But as missionaries and colonizers got involved with Yoruba, they needed to impose patriarchy as a way to strip communities of this spiritual strength that they had through not having male dominance, basically. And this was done in India, in the American Indian culture, in Native Hawaiian communities, where third gender folks have always held spiritual roles. Whether it be intersex folks, femme-identified, assigned male at birth, more masc-identified, assigned female at birth. And in none of these indigenous communities or traditions were medical or surgical interventions a part of that experience. And it's not now. Some trans people have medical intervention. I personally have. But because it's so expensive and inaccessible.
Mm-hmm.
For one reason, lots of people don't. For another reason, lots of people aren't interested in that. I have
Right.
lots of trans people in my life who are totally happy with how their bodies are, who, you know, you could have a trans man who wears a dress and makeup and high heels every single day. You could have a non-binary person who is assigned male at birth who wears jeans and a white t-shirt every day. You could have, there is every rendition of trans people on this planet, and none of it is none of it requires any type of medical intervention. So saying that transgender experience is transhumanist doesn't really work, because it's not a surgical medical experience by definition. And for those people like me who it is, perhaps you could say to me that I'm transhumanist in the same way that someone who gets a boob job or a facelift or puts Botox in their face or gets hip replacement surgery is transhumanist.
I was going to say that same thing. And it's funny where everyone draws a line. So, I mean, like, so some people like, I would dye my hair, but I would never get Botox, or, you know what I mean? Like, it goes that kind of line. So also, this is because I hate the news. So that is news to me that not everybody is changing. And I know quite a few transgender people, but I would never ask. And I don't think it's my business to, and I don't care at all. So when the news comes on and they say they're changing kids and they're giving them drugs and this, is that like a minute or a blown out of proportion or a, what does that, is that just the news scaring everyone?
So let's think about it, right? What is the news really like?
It's all a lie to make you hate your neighbor.
Right. So the news is for if you have a populace who are attacking each other, are they easy to control, or are they personally empowered and they can realize when something's being done that doesn't quite fit, right? So we can understand that being pit against each other through any idea or construct that makes us different is helpful for those that would like to control us and disempower us, right? And so are there kids who are receiving gender affirming hormones in the same way that there are kids who are receiving antidepressants and insulin for diabetes and ADHD meds and, you know, cancer treatments? And there's a whole bunch of folks, including children, who are altering their experience, their lifespan, their hormonal progress medically. And are some of those kids trans kids who have been actively suicidal because of the way society has treated their desire to express themselves, which is in contradiction with gender stereotypes, which are still very controlled and enforced and policed in our societies? And have they thought maybe this would be easier if there wasn't such an obvious contradiction? So, for example, when I was going through puberty and I was developing breasts, I was forced to wear a bra. I was forced to wear certain clothing that would enhance or hide, or I was taught about how dangerous my breasts were to the sexual purity of everyone around me.
That's a good point. And I think you are much younger than me. I am 58 and I'm not a kid person. So I kind of, with all these issues, I go, you people with children, you figure it out. But I am amazed that even with your generation, that all that was still imposed.
Oh, 100%. Well, and I grew up again in evangelical Christianity and went to a Baptist private school. So all of that was very much a part of my upbringing in a way that it may not have been for other people. But right now it's very imposed. I live in Amherst, Massachusetts, which is one of the most liberal pockets of the planet. And there's still a lot of policing around gender. I have a 12-year-old and I've watched it, and half the staff at my kids' school are queer people, and there's still a lot of like, oh, well, you need to, just recently there was like, we're going to have a boys against girls race, and I was like, hold on, team, let's take a look at this again. So yeah, it's very much enforced. And for me, I had more social dysphoria than gender dysphoria. So the way that society interacted with, for example, my breast or my period or my experience of presenting as feminine was very uncomfortable for me. And I couldn't explain that for a super long time. And I was suicidal for like 20 years. I was in and out of mental hospitals. I had a bunch of really horrific experiences around the psychiatric diagnoses that I was given and medications I was given to try to make me follow the rules. And when I finally was like, you know what, I think there's just a lot going on that I need to just not follow these rules anymore, and maybe that would help. And I can't even explain to you, when I got top surgery, which is basically a mastectomy. Okay. The moment I woke up from that surgery, I was like, oh my gosh. It was like, the best way I can describe it is if I had been living my entire life in an MRI machine, right? You know how an MRI machine, it feels like someone's like hammering your head.
Yep.
And then all of a sudden they turned the MRI machine off. And I was 39 years old. And I was like, I'm sorry, what? What? This is what you all are doing? It was so mind-boggling and continues to baffle me every single day how much easier it is to be on this planet for me now without these 6 pounds of fat that was on the front of my body. Wow. It is so wild. And that's not every trans person's experience. Not every trans person has any difficulty with their body. But I have tons and tons of friends who had breast augmentation, boob jobs, right? And they felt it was easier moving through the planet after that. And I would never tell them, oh, you're playing God, like this is dangerous, you're threatening all of society. Right. So I feel like, you know what, I have not been in a psych hospital since I did this. I have not tried to kill myself. I have not been self-harming. I have not I had another little mental health dip around perimenopause and menopause, and it scared me because I was like, oh no, it's all coming back, right? And I got a lot of support from my doctor and did a lot of research and ended up taking some testosterone, and it totally made everything, right side up again. Good. And there's tons of people who take testosterone, both assigned female at birth and assigned male at birth, who do it they don't identify as transgender, but they need it to balance out their system so that they feel right moving through the world. And for me to take it for the same reason feels like really a good enough idea.
Well, this is, and first of all, I want to say thank you for this story, because I think a lot of people are listening, and, there are a lot of people that how do I say this? So I live in Utica. I have met 2 trans people at poetry night, but if I didn't go to poetry night, it would look like there was no one trans here. It's a small town. It's not. So to hear this story is really helps out, because I think there's a lot of people that, I'm from LA. I don't care. Yeah. If you're in a big city and you care about how someone is dressing or their gender, it's kind of like you got to. I can't imagine that. You know what I mean? That's when show business gets to me, when it gets limiting, because no, you're supposed to be Los Angeles. You're supposed to let everybody do whatever they want. We're accepting of all. We're the entertainment industry. And it's funny because I read for a lot of parents whose kids are trans, and they, God bless, I haven't had anybody like judge it. And they are really like, you know what? Even I forget. Someone was just telling me about um, their child, and he said, we're going to let him figure it out, whatever, or
Yeah.
it's she. He said, we're going to let her figure it out, whatever it is. Go ahead. She's smart. She's going to school. She's not doing drugs. So I think that is where we're going. And I think it's even funny that you said they were spiritual leaders, because it's like,
Yeah.
that is the future then, right? Like,
Well,
aren't we all striving for that?
Like, yeah, that's the piece that's like, so when I found that out, I was like, oh my gosh, it makes so much sense. Because think about it. The person who can embody non-duality, what better person to say all of these identities, all of these societally imposed, culturally imposed ideas that limit you from connecting with your true identity as a divine being, that can be let go of. And what better person who's like, yeah, I'm not going to follow the rules because I know that I can't be contained by being a woman or by being a man. I am recognizing that I am change. And what better way to embody that and move through that than to be in ever changing transition, which is where transgender comes from, right? I'm in transition. I'm not in a gender. I'm transcending, I'm transitioning, I'm transforming, I'm transmuting. All of these words are the words that we use for our spiritual evolution.
Yeah. And I am, like I said, even on kids issues, I usually am like, I don't have kids. I don't know. You guys figure it out. Right. And on this issue, I feel like it's the same thing. Why would I care? Why would I care what anyone is doing or wearing or saying? I just try to politely say, what would you like me to call you? Or how would you like me to address you?
Yeah.
And then, but I am glad that I did reach out to you, because also this was in my predictions show, but the crazy Christian, it's almost like there's some groups that are going backwards with that.
Well,
Bible
for good
stuff.
reason, right? Because we need to go more extreme in order to let it all die away, right? So you have to sort of like the pendulums, right?
Yes, you're much more optimistic than me on this issue.
Well, see, that was something else that I wanted to just reflect on from that episode, is that for me, sure, maybe there's governments and extraterrestrials with bad intentions and maybe even demons. But for me, I don't feel worried about that, because I've had an NDE, and and then I had sort of like an aftershock of it. I call it, when my kiddo was born, I got to go back, and I feel absolutely confident that there's no problem. There's no problem. I could, even if, let's say, worst case basis, I'm being used by MK Ultra to be a transgender person. Okay. Maybe they're doing that to me. Okay. Maybe so. Even so, whenever I die, I know I'm just going to get a reset and I'm going to get to play again. And if I'm going to do the playing with a bunch of religious right folks who want to burn me at the stake, I've done that before. If I need to play with extraterrestrials who want to control my mind, I'm sure I've done that before too. And if not, that'd be a fascinating experience. So for me, I don't have a like this life or this earth like only perspective.
Oh, that's good. I don't want to come back. I'm all done. I am all done. I want no more of this place at all.
When I died and then all of a sudden I was sucked back into the like emergency room with everyone screaming and lights flashing and beeping, I was like, you gotta be fucking kidding me. I am not doing this. Like I made a clear decision, team. And it took me several years. It took me several years to feel like, all right, okay, I get it. Okay.
Well,
I'll do this. But
I'm gonna take a break and then we're gonna come back because I have an interesting okay, hold on. We'll be right back.
Are you a seeker who craves a life of authenticity and freedom, but can't seem to get unstuck from experiences of duality? My name is Z, and I spent years stuck in victimhood, craving enlightenment, but trapped in a cycle of 2 steps forward and what felt like 100 steps back. I felt like I was drowning in fear and shame until I started learning about the nervous system. It turns out that while we are spiritual beings, we are only able to be here because of these physical bodies, and the nervous system is just trying to keep us alive by bringing us back to fight, flight, freeze responses. We can get stuck in these defense states, or we can gain resilience by developing a respectful and trusting relationship with our nervous system. If you're ready to learn more, check out my YouTube channel and join us for online coaching and courses by going to www.anexperiencer.com. That's anexperiencer.com. See you there.
It's such a funny topic because I feel like for the longest time I've just been like, I'm tired. I know there's a really weird positive toxic positivity around me right now.
Yeah.
And that does not fly. I'm going to do a whole episode on my Patreon about toxic positivity because
good.
I can gather this whole thing like, yeah, it's just a blip, and then we're going to get up there and watch it like a movie, and we're going to laugh and be like, oh, but I'm done down here. It's been too hard. I haven't learned.
So Karen,
I'm done with those lessons. I don't want to.
You know what? That's a perfect place to start the SSP. That's a perfect segue to talking about the safe and sound protocol, because the reason why, the majority of my brain space is taken up with like, it's all good, it's a game, right? Mm-hmm. But then the other part of my brain space has really confronted this love and light community in the depths of my own personal despair and distress, those times when I couldn't live, right? Mm-hmm. And when I felt too tired and this is too hard and I don't want to do it. And realize that those love and lighters, with all their good intention, and maybe it's toxic or maybe it's just trying and they're, whatever version of it, that however you want to call their positivity, they're forgetting that we have these animal bodies.
Yeah.
And these animal bodies don't understand that it's all going to work out. Our animal bodies don't understand that we're just going to set the refresh button when we die, right? Mm-hmm. Millions of years of evolutionary development on a biological level have trained our nervous systems to avoid death at all cost and to catalog every potential threat that has ever crossed through our personal body and through at least 7 generations back, according to epigenetics, mm-hmm. with any time that there was any cross-reference point with a threat. And then its job is to remind us of that every single day and make us live in terror so that we won't die, right? And until we address that and form a respectful, open, loving communication with our animal body and treat our animal body in the way that it is designed to be treated, by supporting it through the processes that the nervous system needs to wash these defense state responses chemically and physically through our body, so that we're not holding on to all the defense reactions. That is a skill that we can learn, that we understand from studying animals, right? If you watch a gazelle get chased by a lion, it'll run, and then the lion eventually gives up, and then that gazelle will stand there shaking for several moments, and then it'll take a nap.
Yes.
And then it'll feel better. And what we do is we get chased by lions all day, every day, and we never stop to shake or rest, right? Most of us don't eat enough. Most of us don't sleep enough. Most of us don't get enough physical movement. Most of us don't ever grieve, right?
Mm-hmm.
So in the absence of all of that, our little systems are so far out of whack. It's called a neuroceptive mismatch that we become either overreactive to any perceived threat, underreactive, or a mix of both, which is what I find to be the most common. So examples of underreactive are like, I go to work with a boss who treats me poorly. I stay in an abusive relationship. I eat something that makes my body feel yucky, right? Overreactive is I'm panicked every time the phone rings, or I get an email, or I walk around a corner, right? And most of us have that neuroceptive mismatch that then results in all of this pent up chemical and physiological response that ends up in disease.
And I want to hold that thought for 1 second and just I'm going to jump back. How did you get into this field? You are working at UMass, am I correct? Or this is what is your background really quick?
Yeah. So I would say the way I got into this was by hitting rock bottom. I became so hopeless and had been, had overdosed and it failed. And I had been self-harming for a decade, and my relationship was falling apart and my parenting was at risk. And I was confronted with, go to the hospital. And I went, and I really believe a series of miracles occurred to lead me to a doctor who suggested what's called dialectical behavioral therapy. And it is a mix of cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, and Zen Buddhism. And pairing the mindfulness and the radical acceptance with the behavior and thought modification that comes through CBT was really a perfect recipe for me to realize that my system was, I was at war with my own body, right? And there was no way in that state that I could change any of my thoughts or behaviors. And so it wasn't until I reconciled those, the mind and the body, basically. And that led me on a many-year journey. It's been about a decade since that happened. I took DBT classes on repeat for 7 years. It's just a 9-month program, but I just did it like 10 times because I really needed to try to understand it.
It's a lot. I could already, I'm like, wow, you're over my head, but that's okay.
Yeah. No, it's, and, I am like, DBT is my favorite thing on the planet. It's extraordinary and it's very simple at the same time. It's just, their slogan is how to live a life worth living. And I can tell you that I went from 2 decades of being suicidal and feeling like life was absolutely not worth living to feeling like it was worth living, still challenging, but worth living, within 6 months of being exposed to DBT. It's that radical. But anyways, it's a skill set that is taught through this course. And so I did that for a number of years, and I continued reading, every self-help book, every spiritual book, everything. And when I went through this perimenopause dip in my mental health and was like, you know what, I have fought like hell to get my mental health back, and you are not going to take it away from me again, right? So I was in a lot of conversation with my doctor, and she suggested that I go to a workshop on polyvagal theory, which is what the Safe and Sound protocol is based off of. And it's a theory developed by Dr. Stephen Porges to look at the nervous system in a new way, in a more nuanced way, where we can understand both the sympathetic and parasympathetic responses, but additionally, we can understand what's called the ventral vagal, which is the component of the vagus nerve or the vagus nerve mechanism that allows us to go flexibly into and out of fight, flight, or freeze when they're effective, to take energy from the fight and flight sympathetic response and use that when we want to do something like perform or exercise or do something challenging. It allows us to dip a little bit into dorsal and get into meditation or intimate conversations or physical intimacy, and then allows us to make choices about how and where we want to use our defense responses
and
to support ourselves.
I had taken I didn't make it through. I had taken a class on this that was like a 21-day reset, and it was
with
That's okay. You don't have to say because it didn't work.
Okay. I know what you're talking about, but I can't remember her name.
Like I couldn't. It was like I got about day 6 and I was like, this isn't. I'm not. Now what you're doing is kind of amazing, and because. And I've only done it once, and we only did it for a minute because it was like the intro. But immediately, and I told you this because you're listening to music, there was a vibration in literally the vagus nerve that you told me. And this is just from listening to music.
Yeah. It's not just music though. So you asked me how I got into it. So I did the Safe and Sound protocol because my doctor recommended it, but I realized it would be cheaper to do it through the training for the certification because I'm trained as a speech pathologist. That's where I went to UMass to get that. So speech pathologists are one of the few like licensed professionals that can do SSP. So I got it through the certification process. And then I was like, oh, I want to do this with people because this is extraordinary, right? So what it is it's filtered music that uses the auditory pathway to connect with the vagus nerve, which is the largest cranial nerve, which goes from your auditory pathway down both sides of your throat, branches out to your heart and lungs, and then touches in with every major organ, including the reproductive organs and your intestines. So basically, all of your biological functions are highly influenced by this one nerve. And the music is filtered so that it moves the inner ear muscle, impacting the vagus nerve, toning and strengthening the vagus nerve so that your vagus nerve becomes more flexible and all in terms of being able to go into and out of fight or flight or into and out of freeze, which many of us get stuck in those places. But it also, because of that flexibility, if you think about resilience being the ability to bounce back or be flexible with stress. So a toned vagus nerve experiences stress as less stressful because it's strong, right? And so that's why you could feel that little buzzing in your neck because that vagus nerve was going, oh, hi, are you knocking on my door? Here I am. It's quite amazing. And you don't have to do anything. It's passive. And then the invitation is to notice how your individual body responds to how its nervous system response has gotten stuck and how it experiences that so that you can then get to know yourself well and work with yourself.
So now, and we only did it for 5 minutes, so I don't feel like we started.
Yeah.
And I had the start of, and I don't know, does this have to do with it? And then I had a start of what I thought was a cold sore that turned into shingles. Very light case. I know other people have it where they think their skin is on fire. It was unbelievably light. It's still like hanging around, but it is there. So was that my nervous system? Like, it's almost like I just got a massage and I feel like my head is full, like my body is kicking out stuff. Could that be connected?
So are you asking me if listening to 5 minutes of the SSP, it has made your shingles less intense?
Yes, or more intense, or did my body go, holy cow, a change is coming. Let's do this. Let's let her know her immune system is not working right.
I see. Okay. So no, I do not believe that 5 minutes of the listening, because it's very low filtration in the first hour, could have physiologically affected you. However, as a very spiritual person who is someone who knows how to jump timelines, similar to Jessa, your intention to say, okay, nervous system, I'm ready. I will address this. I will acknowledge what you've been going through and try to support you. That on a non-physical, but still physical level, absolutely could be allowing you to be confronted by what needs to be shifted and start being able to shift that very quickly. Because you know how it's like, if I'm like, okay, I think that I'm going to get a red Subaru. And then all of a sudden I see red Subarus everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So that is a function of what's called the reticular activating system, which is a component in the brain whose function is to affirm those things that you have communicated are worth paying attention to. So when you say to your reticular activating system, by signing up for the SSP, by having conversations with Jessa about it, when you say, my nervous system is now important to me, and I am going to notice its functioning and support it in shifting, then yes, you will start to have physiological reactions to that.
Okay, that makes sense to me. And also, to me, it feels like maybe my nervous system was also going, this is how important this is.
Yeah, exactly. Saying, yeah, okay, you're willing to pay attention. We're going to throw out all the stops. It's also like if I, when I used to work, and never take a day off if I was sick, and then I would have a vacation, mm-hmm. and I would get the flu and pink eye and an ear infection and pneumonia, right?
Uh-huh.
Because my body was like, well, fuck you. If you will never take a break, we're going to take a break when you finally do, and we're going to just flush it all out. So I definitely think your body could be like, oh, you want to know about this now? Yeah, we'll show you. We'll show you. No problem. Here's shingles. How about that?
Yeah. Cause I was like, what? I mean, I never get sick or anything. And it really surprised me. And, but also my life is at its highest stress ever.
Yeah. Yeah, I was also going to say you're in the age range and the life situation that's like perfect recipe for shingles.
Yes, yeah. All right, so keep going. So we know how you came about this, and I think we know how it works. Yeah, although, like I said, you're way over my head, but I think I get it with the inner ear and stuff. And I just want to say, tell me some more. I don't even have a setup question. Okay. Just keep talking.
Yeah. Well, here's what I really would love for people to know. Is that the SSP is a cool, magical, fancy, expensive thing. Okay.
It's not that expensive.
Well,
I'm a cheap person, and I'm gonna say you're talking to people who get readings. It's in the same range.
Okay. Well, all of that to say, it is not the only way to give yourself the benefits that come through the SSP. Okay. So understanding that you even have a nervous system and then learning about how that nervous system works and then doing the daily things to support that nervous system, all of that is free. I am every day adding to a YouTube channel where I'm trying to put as much out there for free as I can. Lots of people are talking about the vagus nerve and nervous system regulation online. There's lots of information. Plus the fact that all of these rituals or exercises or methods to support our nervous system are embedded into every ancient indigenous faith-based wisdom tradition. Okay, if you think about it, the four main areas of nervous system exercises that you do to tone and strengthen the vagus nerve are breathing,
okay,
movement, vocalization, and mindfulness or meditation. So if you take any wisdom tradition, let's say, for example, Buddhism, okay, you've got meditation, you've got daily physical stretching through some sort of yoga or Tai Chi or Qigong, right? You've got chanting for the vocalization, and you've got breathing, breath work, right?
Mm-hmm.
Judaism has it. Christianity has it. We all get in a room and sing together, right? Every tradition has these four areas of practices that support our nervous system.
I was going to go with the American way, which was pot, mushrooms, alcohol, and sex with strangers. That's how we do it in this country, Z.
I got it. But you know what? Even that even that, right? If you want to talk about sex with strangers, what are you reaching for? You're reaching for some really deep breathing.
Right.
You're reaching for some exercise, some movement. You're reaching for some co-regulation, which is intimacy or connection with another being. So that is a nervous system regulator. And there's tons of science to support that sex and orgasm, including sex with self, is incredible for your physiology. It's very positive.
Okay. Then I know what we're doing after this podcast. Let's take a break and we'll be right back. Hold that thought right there. Hey, everybody. How's that spiritual awakening going? I know. Don't worry. Help is here. HighlySpiritualPerson.com is a haven for spiritual misfits and empaths navigating spirituality and mental health. My friend Camille has a plethora of resources on her site to help you on your spiritual journey, even if you're just starting out. It includes individual and collective Reiki sessions, personalized guided meditations, sleep affirmation tracks, and so much more. Camille has so much to offer. She's going to be on my podcast in December. I can't wait to talk to her. Her blog posts and podcast episodes explore spirituality and are great for folks carving out their own path. She has written 2 easy-to-follow guidebooks, one on breathwork, and the newest book is called Manifestation is Easy, and it features 22 step-by-step manifestation techniques, as well as tips and advice on how to overcome the most common blocks and start changing your reality. Go to HighlySpiritualPerson.com. I promise you, you will get lost in how much information is in there. It's one of my favorite rabbit holes. Okay, so 2 things there, and because I want to jump back to, if you are going to jump in and pay for sessions, which again, I'm going to say I really don't think it's unreasonable, and to change your life, it's really not unreasonable. And we're gonna, and also the YouTube channel, I didn't even know about that. So you have plenty of things that people can do to help themselves. And then also maybe they get to know you, and then they will jump in on the SSP, right?
Yeah, totally. That's what I want to create, many pathways. So the YouTube has been so fun. I've put in more and more on that every day. I also just put on a self-paced online course, which is only $111. And in 2 weeks, we're going to start every other week having a live session for question and answer, to do nervous system regulation exercises together, just learn more about it together. So that's a super accessible way to connect with me and a community of folks who are sharing that intention. And there's like more than 50 videos, meditations, journal prompts, so much with that course. You can go on and buy that now. It's all finished. And then I offer just like a 4-session nervous system education package, so that people can just, if they're not up for the SSP, then they can just really get to know their own nervous system with me on a very individual level. And then the SSP, of course, is a more long-term commitment. It typically takes between 15 plus sessions. So that's why it's expensive.
And it's every 2 weeks. So
you could do it every 2 weeks. You could do it every week. And that's just sort of according to a person's preference. But again, the SSP is a physiological intervention, and not everybody can do it. So certain specifically, like if you have ringing in the ears or any condition that affects the ear structure, or if you have certain chronic or immune or neurological conditions, it might not be a good fit. So it's not the only choice, is what I want people to know. There's lots of ways to access this information and support your life.
Okay, good. Yeah. So okay, great. There's a lot of ways to do it. And do people ever get kind of halfway through the SSP and it's like really intense? Because it sounds like I've done neurofeedback, which is very different, but that was, I didn't see a downside to it. I didn't see that you were going to get upset by it or anything. Do people ever kind of, can you wake up too much in the SSP? That's the way I want to say it. It seems pretty safe.
So what I want to say is I wouldn't say you can't you can wake up too much. What I would say is everyone's nervous system is unique, and it can be too much for an individual's nervous system because it's a fairly aggressive physiological intervention that's passive. So you can't give consent with the SSP. If your nervous system is having a dorsal or a sympathetic response, it could send you into like a catatonic state or into a severe panic attack. And that's my job. My job is to keep people from going to either of those places.
Okay.
And that's why my job is to sit there. And like I said to you, it's going to feel weird because I'm going to stare at you, right? I'm watching for physiological changes. And my job is to make sure that the SSP does not become disruptive for you. And over the course of my working with people, there have been several cases where I have had to say, the SSP is not a fit for you right now, and we're going to discontinue it. And we usually know that within the first couple of sessions.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Well, I guess everything isn't for everybody. So
it's not. Yeah.
You could put it, but it sure feels.
And that's why I'm making so much effort to offer ways to access this information, because really the SSP is like, if you go to a 30-day workout boot camp thing, okay, yeah, you're going to feel like you're going to have the accountability. You're going to be all jazzed about it. It's going to be, have that continuity. You're going to feel stronger. But then after, if you do nothing, then you're just going to go right back to where you are. That's the same with the SSP. You're going to get all jazzed because I'm going to support you and you're going to be like all focused on it. But if you don't make it a lifestyle to treat your body with respect and develop open and loving and respectful communication and understanding with your body, then the SSP is worthless.
So that also could be because I tend to overwork out. So that's the same thing, right? Same problem?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yep. So any kind of I am not in communication with my body is why we struggle as humans, is my belief, right? So if I have been trained by this culture from the time I'm itty bitty, you don't have to go to the bathroom. You're not hungry. You're going to eat when we tell you to eat. You're going to sleep when we tell you to eat, sleep, sit up, sit still. I have totally lost that communication with my body that tells me, oh, hey, you need to sleep more. Or, oh, hey, I know your mom needs help in the middle of the night, but you are going to need to sleep. So we're going to call on other members of the tribe. We were set up to be communal animals who carried things together and who were able to rest when we needed to rest and eat when we needed to eat and share the load. And that's what that co-regulation piece is. But in a society that separates us out, keeps us all in our own little houses and working these factory jobs, right? We've lost touch. And in the process of losing touch, we have associated other humans with threat, which limits our ability to co-regulate with them and have true intimacy and connection and to support and protect and enhance each other's lives.
There's a book, I believe it's called True. I think that's the name of it. And the woman that wrote it, I know her first name was Wednesday. That's all
Oh, that's a cool name.
I know, right? And she talks about all the things that were untrue about female sexuality, including there used to be tribes where a woman had 5 men.
Yeah.
And she would have sex with all the men so that they didn't know whose kid it was. And one was like the food gatherer. Can you even...
This is great.
In this society right now, where it's all about getting a young wife, it's like, that seems like, right?
See, that goes all the way back to that thing we were talking about at the beginning with trans folks, because, in these societies where there was so much equanimity around all these things, and nobody had this dominance and power, and we had to invent patriarchy to control people.
Yes. And I don't know if this is a dumb add-on, but, the men were the ones that wore makeup, not women.
Yeah. I know. I tell my kid that all the time. I'm like, did you ever hear of what was his name? That King Louis, whatever, who walked around in high heels and makeup. Yeah. The truth is everybody wore makeup because indigenous folks have been using paint to, so it's been a long standing tradition to adorn ourselves, and it had nothing to do with gender ever.
Right. And also, there's a funny, I remember this woman, it was very funny, all the things she was listing, all the things that gender transgender people should do, makeup, blah blah blah, and then she just shows that's exactly what the Catholic Church does. Like they're all, you know what I mean? Like she was like yeah, that's the Pope, ladies and gentlemen. That's the right, like he's in a dress and all this stuff. So it's if I ever find that, I'll send it to you. It was so clever.
I love that. Yeah, there's nothing new under the sun, and bless our little hearts. When we're in this overactive defense state, we actually perceive threat where there is none. So that's why I really like to remind people anytime I'm interacting with someone, it's not just me and Karen. It's me and my nervous system, and Karen and Karen's nervous system. And if your nervous system is in a threat response, and I smile at you, instead of experiencing that smile as warm and comforting, you're going to experience it as a tiger baring their teeth, ready to cut your throat open. And that's not because you have poor character or because you haven't accessed compassion or because you're not trying hard enough. That's because you are experiencing what's called an amygdala hijack, where your amygdala has actually cut off access to your frontal lobe where you can access compassion and language and understanding and logic. And it's done that so that you can stay in your primitive evolution lower brain area where it is just going to keep you alive by making sure that you don't trust that tiger that's baring its teeth at you.
Yeah, I think there's when you were saying what your nervous system is attuned to, I was going to say if your nervous system is attuned to Biden and their nervous system is attuned to Trump, because that's really what,
there you go.
But it's,
and at the end of the day, both Biden and Trump are working together on the supposition that if they keep us scared,
yes,
and we don't have access, both of them, and they could be on the same team as far as I'm concerned.
Now you're stepping into my conspiracy world. Now you're here.
Well, because it's effective, right? Yeah. It's super effective to have a group of people who are terrified. That's why we yell at little kids and give them dirty looks, because we want to control them. And it just keeps going into adulthood, and the people who are trying to control us, they just want to keep us scared. And guess why trans people are so scary? Because trans people are saying, actually, you can go ahead and kill me if you want to, but I'm going to be who I am because I believe that I'm okay.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the most powerful thing that we can do, is believe that we are okay. And we do that by asking ourselves, how do you feel? What do you need? That's it.
The whole thing. Yes. When you were talking about that response that people have, I feel like that is one thing about comedy that I feel so lucky about, which is, first of all, a lot of comedy, even when you see a comic like making a mistake or saying something transphobic or something like that, they are at least a mirror, because at least there's the problem. We can see it. But I don't know how you can be in comedy, because when I sit in a green room half the time, or when I used to in LA, not so much out here, there was every gender, there was every race, there was every, I don't know how you could be in the comedy community, because it is such a great, it's everyone. It's everyone. But I do understand where that would need to be programmed if I grew up and lived where I am right now. I don't see people. I don't see that variety.
Right. My favorite quote ever is by someone named Byron Katie. And she says, if I were thinking and believing what you are thinking and believing, I would do the same thing.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. I got to perform in Dubai this year. And
Wow.
yeah, and I go, and so when I'm at my mom's retirement community, or I'm sorry, independent living, and they're all, let's say they're all 70s, 80s at least. And I was going to Dubai. Wow, you gotta be careful. There's bombs go all over. I was like, it's so.
You saw all the stereotypes.
All the stereotype, all the uneducated. You got to be careful of those people. Oh my God. I have a thing for Muslim men. Don't tell me they're. I would have one. I love Middle Eastern men. Don't tell me anything. You know what I mean? But I couldn't convince them that.
And you can't. That's a really good word to use. Is that your nervous system can't access safety because of that amygdala hijack that I mentioned. So it's actually a physiological block. You're not able to go to your executive functioning where you can consider different opinions. Okay. So if someone is scared and they're scared for you and they think they're going to keep you alive, then they're in their lower brain and they have the resources of an alligator.
Yeah.
And if you want them to try to do some mammal stuff, like have compassion and have an open mind and consider a different opinion, that's not a compassionate thing for you to ask of them because they're physiologically not able to do that. And that's why we add the nervous system exercises in, because what the nervous system exercises do is they kind of reverse psychology, the amygdala. So if I'm in a threat response and I start breathing very deeply, my amygdala goes, oh, is there maybe no tiger? Because you wouldn't be able to breathe deeply if there was a tiger. And then once that it starts to question it, then you can support yourself in getting back up to your prefrontal cortex.
So now for all my folks who do, I have to, it'd probably be the only place I divide with you here, that I do believe there are like MK Ultras and government programs and things that are maybe not. I think there's some bad guys out there. I'll put it that way.
Sure. Yeah. I don't think I think there are people who are operating in a defense response according to whatever they've experienced. So if there's an MK Ultra and they've been tortured to have mind control, then they're not in their executive functioning.
Executive function. What a nice way to say it. It sounds like I should be wearing a suit when I say that. Am I executive functioning? Now I'm putting on my jeans. I'm not. I'm in my lower brain. So is there a way, this is a great quandary for you as we close out the podcast, to separate this response from intuition? Because I teach.
Yes, 100%.
Okay, because this is what I was taught intuition was. I thought a guy walks in to wherever you are, and your brain takes a picture, throws it back to the subconscious. Subconscious goes through everything you've ever known and comes up with that guy. His eyes look like Ted Bundy. That he holds his body like that kid that beat me up in high school. And all you get is, I don't like that guy. There's the threat.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Perfect. So that's your nervous system.
Okay.
Saying
doing the right thing.
Doing its job. It's morally neutral. Okay. So its job is the same as a smoke detector. Okay. So the smoke detector is not saying that smoke is bad. It's just saying smoke is present. So when I am making pancakes in the morning and I burn one and the smoke detector goes off, I go, I know, calm down, you're fine. And I just like calmly walk the pancakes out to the patio. I open up a window. I start fanning the smoke detector. I'm not freaked out, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's where I am getting my nervous system too. And that's what I want to offer for folks, to be able to have that kind of relationship with their message that says that person looks like whoever you said, high school, who beat me up.
Bully, whatever. Yeah.
If I wake up in the middle of the night to the smoke detector, I'm going to go, oh, fuck. And I'm going to grab my kid and I'm going to throw ourselves down the stairs and try to get out. Right.
Right.
So most of the world is living in the middle of the night. oh shit, run out the door. Okay. What I'm offering to myself and others, if it feels right for them, is that you can get that information from your nervous system and go, oh, thank you for pointing out that this person reminds me of the person that I went to high school with who was aggressive towards me. I'm going to really hear you. I'm going to ask you, what do you need? You being the nervous system. And then I'm going to give you some breath work. I'm going to give you some movement. I'm going to give you some vocalization. I'm maybe going to put an ice pack to give myself, slow my heart rate down. I'm going to support my nervous system. And then once my nervous system has settled back out, I'm going to check the facts. I'm going to go, okay, yeah, maybe that does ring a bell, but I have actually gotten to know this person and I feel comfortable with them. Or I will promise my body that I will pay close attention to this person's behavior and I will develop my assertive communication and my boundaries so that I can remove myself and remind myself that I'm not a small child like I was when I was beat up, that I now have resources and understandings and options so that I can navigate this situation. So we are not shutting down the nervous system and we are not trying to be in a Zen state all of the time. That would be quite dangerous.
Yes.
Right?
Okay. Good.
If there is a fire in the house or if the government busts into my house with a bunch of guns, I want to go into sympathetic so that I can not take time to think about it and think about, oh, well, they have a soul and they probably have been hurt, right? I don't want to do that.
Mm-hmm.
I want to grab my kid and I want to knock those people out of the way and I want to get the fuck out of the house, right?
Yeah.
And I will knock anybody down and I don't care. And then later, maybe I can do some contemplation or reflection, right? But it's not a reasonable thing. Again, this is where the love and lighters get confused. It's not a reasonable thing to move through the physical experience acting as if there's no danger because the physical body doesn't understand that. And the physical body needs the support that it needs, just like the little gazelle when it shakes after it runs away from the lion. We've got to show up for ourselves as physical beings first. And then once we support ourselves as physical beings, let's say I go through the sympathetic response, I knock everybody out of the way, I get my kid and I out, then later I can reflect and have a spiritual perspective on that experience. But I'm not going to try to have a spiritual perspective in the moment. And maybe, sure enough, like maybe Gandhi could do that, but I'm not trying to be Gandhi. There's a few Gandhis ever and plenty good for them. I respect it. But, I've let go of that hope. I'm not trying to be Gandhi.
Well, good. To bring this all circle and why I'm so excited to talk to you next week is as you were doing that, my mother beeps in, which immediately my nervous system goes, you gotta, what's happening? Right. So we're not, yes, we're not. So, but that was perfect. So, well, thank you. Please tell everyone where they can find your YouTube, where they can connect with you, any information like that, anything at all.
Okay. So my website is www.anexperiencer.com, An Experiencer. And then the YouTube channel, I think, is at Be The Change 88. But I will double check that at Be The Change 88. And then but it's on the website, www.anexperiencer.com.
Okay, great. And thank you for coming on and being patient with me and expressing all the stuff. I figure if I offended someone, they're not listening this far in, but I hope people know that was never my goal. I was in the middle. Yeah.
Well, and I think something that's really beautiful about you is that you're not asking people to edit themselves and you're just sharing and exploring. And that's why, I ended up calling my website An Experiencer, because I feel like, what am I if not just having experiences? And when I try to control other people, because I don't want them to control me, that doesn't really make a lot of sense.
Right.
But I'm happy to just offer perspective and understanding if that's helpful for anyone.
Great. Yes. And I was so in that podcast and that seemed like a left turn, but anyways, but thank you very much. And I just adore you. I cannot wait to see you next week.
Me too.
Okay, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening. I'll see you all next week. And thanks to Mike at Uno Rising Media. Paranormal